this presentation we will explain the basics of the VDMbee value management platform to you, and for that purpose we have crafted a simple use case that every one of you will understand from daily life. It's about the Paperboy, a schoolboy basically distributing newspapers, and we will consider this as his business. So he runs a simple business model. Even this simple person has a business model. But this business model is not functioning too good. That is mostly caused by a lack of discipline from his side. It's not only that the newspaper itself is sometimes not reliable in delivering the newspaper to him, but he himself is often just not available because he forgets it or he has other priorities. And then he asks his brothers and sisters whether they can do it for him, and that sometimes works, but often they don't like it, and they are also late. So the end result of this is very bad performance, and the receivers of the newspaper are dissatisfied with him, and he knows that, and he knows that there is a risk for him to lose his newspaper route. So he thinks by himself, what can I do to improve my business? And then he finds that schoolmates in his class at school are willing to stand in for him, and as a backup network. And although this cost him some money because they don't do it for free, he accepts that because he thinks everything is better than me losing my newspaper route. And the next page you can see the situation, and we talk about a plan to achieve this strategy, namely from going from as is to be situation with poor service delivered to a situation in which he delivers better service. And as explained, the poor service came from the low availability of himself, and due to the arrangement of this backup network, he can do a better job. And now we will try to structure this use case a little further, as slowly coming towards something that you can use in our app. And for this purpose you need to consider a business model as fundamentally based on collaboration of participants or partners in business. One partner providing value or value proposition to another partner, etc. And here you see a simple network for that. There are three participants, the schoolboy in the role of Paperboy, the readers in the role of subscriber, and the company, the newspaper company, in the role of publisher. And they all interact, sort of value network, by providing value propositions to each other, exchange of value. That's a very fundamental pattern underlying our app. So in this case, the Paperboy is providing a value proposition to the subscriber that can be called newspaper on demand. Everybody will understand what that means, right? And at the end of the year, typically, the readers will provide him a tip. So that's part of his revenue. The other revenue comes from the publisher to the Paperboy, based on the Paperboy providing delivery service to the publisher. And what the publisher provides to the Paperboy can be described as the paper route. So this is the network. But yeah, as we said, we want to go from as is to be. You want to improve, and you want to steer your business. So also the Paperboy wants to steer his business, and he needs to have criteria to do so. Let's say value criteria. Indicators that tell him whether he goes the right way or not. And before you go to the app, because if you start doing that in the app straight away, that might be difficult, but there is another tool, well-known tool in the market that you might know as the strategy map of Kaplan-Norton. That one is very adequate to understand the cause-effect relationships between, let's say, value objectives, right? So he wants to steer on things like, profit. Yes, he wants to have a good profit, and maybe a reasonable hourly income. If you see what his earnings are and the effort he has to do, it should be reasonable, right? But very important for him is revenue at risk. That should be as low as possible. So these are, let's say, certain critical success factors. We call them plan values, or values, value objectives that you define at the plan level. But this chart can be used to understand a little bit how these factors are influenced by other factors. And when you have that picture in mind, and you combine it with the picture on the previous page, right, the network, then you have, in this case, enough for you to do the modeling and the prototyping, as you say, in the app productively. So just a few more words on this map. It's important to understand that the revenue at risk is influenced by, of course, the risk of the loss of the paper round. And the risk of the loss of the paper round is directly influenced by the receiver satisfaction. I think that is clear. And the receiver satisfaction is based on the promptness, or how reliable is this Paperboy in delivering his newspapers ultimately. So the promptness. And this promptness is based on two factors. One is the promptness of the supply of the newspapers to the Paperboy, and the other is the availability of the Paperboy himself. So that is a very important aspect of the cause-effect value story, so to say. On the other hand, the availability of the Paperboy also influences his execution effort, because when he's just not available, there's just no effort, right? And there is also coordination effort, because he has to do two things. He has to sort out and schedule where he should bring his newspapers, or he has, in the later phase, as you will see, he has to coordinate also for his backup network. So there's coordination work. There's also execution work, just pedaling around, and to deliver the newspapers. This together brings the effort. And if you take the effort and you combine it with the revenue, you get a hourly income that you can calculate. And the execution effort, based on which he gets a fee from the newspaper company, and the receiver satisfaction, based on which he get a tip at the end of the year. These two will form his revenue, and where you take cost and revenue, you make a profit or not. And the cost is very simple here. It's, in this example, just based on the cost of his bike. He just has to make sure that he has a working bike at all times. So this is basically the story. And as said already, if you combine this with this network, then it is time to open the value management platform and to just fill in the data there in a little bit more detailed. But that will be the subject of the next presentation.